Hello YouTube, this is DVD Review Studios here, and today I'm going to be doing a Blu-ray and DVD update for January 2018. So first up for the Blu-rays, we have Valerian and the City of a Thousand Planets. This movie came out not too long ago, around July or August of last year, and for a summer film this completely bombed at the box office, which genuinely surprised me, because the visuals and the trailers in particular truly were mesmerising, and the film is most definitely mesmerising. And I did say to myself, because I didn't get a chance to go and see it in the cinema, I would grab the Blu-ray as soon as I could, and I definitely do not regret doing so. I really thoroughly enjoyed this, but many of the online criticisms and early reviews completely destroyed this film's potential, in my opinion, and that was solely based on the lead roles of Valerian and Laureline, portrayed by Dane DeHaan, who I personally know from that cringeworthy Spider-Man movie from a couple of years ago, which is actually in this update. And Cara Delevingne, I don't really know anything about her. She was in that shitty Suicide Squad movie, and apparently she's a model. But honestly, they were both very much okay in this movie. I don't really see a flaw in their acting. Some of the dialogue is a little bit forced, in particular by Dane DeHaan, who sounds as though, to put it softly, he's been punched in the dick or something. He just sounds as though he's in agony when trying to say something serious. But aside from that, honestly, this film was great. I really enjoyed the storyline, so many really interesting visuals, loads of great characters. I loved the alien designs, in particular this character, who I'm 99.9% sure he was portrayed by John Goodman. It certainly sounded like him, but I haven't looked it up. And I really enjoyed the Dogen and Digest triplet characters, and Rihanna was surprisingly a very good character as well. She portrayed this bizarre shape-shifting stripper alien called Bubble, and that was definitely one of the best pieces of promotional material for sure for this movie, and certainly one of the best scenes in my opinion. So overall, don't be a sheep, go and check it out for yourself. Don't follow the reviews that only rave about the visuals. Definitely check it out for yourself. There's loads of great story elements to this film that I really enjoyed, and I personally loved the intro. It's very subtle, very simple, but it really does represent humanity and mankind's progression in such a unique way. And of course, a David Bowie track in space is always a good thing. So that is my thoughts on Valerian. Next up, sticking with the theme of sci-fi, we have Star Trek Beyond, which I did see in the cinema back in 2016, and I actually haven't watched this Blu-ray yet, but I remember thoroughly enjoying the film. The character of Jaylah was personally one of my favourite things about this movie. Chris Pine's portrayal of Captain Kirk, as always, is fantastic, and certainly one of the strong points of the modern Star Trek trilogy, and this was certainly a huge step up in quality compared to Star Trek Into Darkness, which personally I didn't really like, but this is actually a different director. I think this is the director of the Fast and Furious movies, which I'm not really a big fan of those movies at all, but his style and his portrayal of a Star Trek film truly was something different, and I certainly really enjoyed this aspect. And of course, Simon Pegg co-wrote the film, I believe, and he was fantastic in his film as Scotty. So overall, lots of enjoyment from this movie, and I do plan to rewatch the entire trilogy, so perhaps I'll review the entire trilogy altogether in one video at some point in the near future. So definitely recommend checking out this movie. Star Trek Beyond was fantastic. Next up, we have a film that I didn't particularly like. This is Manhunter, a Michael Mann film, and this is the first on-screen depiction of the horror character Hannibal Lecter, and certainly is one of the more interesting horror characters in my opinion, and I've seen pretty much everything there is about Hannibal Lecter. I love the novels by Thomas Harris, and my favourite film from the Hannibal Lecter trilogy is certainly Silence of the Lambs, albeit I do love Red Dragon as well, which is what this film is. The screen adaptation of the first novel by Thomas Harris, Red Dragon, which is actually my favourite of the novels. But anyway, I've seen the TV series. I quite like Hannibal Rising, albeit it's not exactly the best film ever. But this was incredibly disappointing. I was expecting a lot more from the first on-screen depiction of Hannibal Lecter. And Michael Mann, in my opinion, is such a poor director. Honestly, very little to no atmosphere, rubbish cinematography, very uninspiring script, and certainly let me down as a fan of the novels and as a huge fan of Hannibal Lecter as a character and as a franchise. This was absolutely god-awful. I really did not enjoy this one bit, so much so I actually didn't finish the movie. I remember so precisely I got about an hour and 13 minutes in because I watched an hour the day I bought the film and was very underwhelmed, and then I said to myself I'll try and finish it the next day. And I watched maybe 10 minutes, and then the day after I tried to finish it again and gave up. Just really, really did underwhelm me, especially for a layered story such as Red Dragon. The novel I would highly recommend. But the way they portrayed the main villain, Francis Dolarhyde, there are so many layers to that character, and this film did not do that character justice in my opinion. Maybe I just didn't give it enough chance, but I think an hour in is chance enough, and that's an hour of my life I'm never going to get back. And this was just very disappointing to me as a huge fan of the franchise, so that is Manhunter. I would definitely not recommend this film. And the last 6 Blu-rays I have to show are all DC CW TV shows. First of all, we have the 3rd season of The Flash, which I did very briefly show in my Christmas haul video, and I'd only seen maybe a third of this season at that particular moment in time, and now I finished it, and overall I enjoyed it. The finale episode, in my opinion, was a little bit too predictable for my liking, and the latter 2 minutes of that episode is some of the most cringeworthy acting I've seen from this entire show. And I really did not like the episode on a whole, but aside from that, I loved the random episodes like the Gorilla Grodd 2-parter, some very adventurous CGI in that episode, and I loved how they brought back Wentworth Miller as Captain Cold for a one-off episode as well. So overall, very enjoyable season. I just didn't really like the finale, and watching the show really did rekindle my love for the other DC TV shows. We have Legends of Tomorrow Season 1, which I've owned for quite a while. I had only seen the pilot episode, and yeah, that was about it really. I didn't really know what to expect from this show, but bringing the secondary characters to the forefront as main characters was fantastic in terms of the idea, and overall I think the execution of this season was fantastic. I really thoroughly enjoyed the main storyline focusing on Hawkgirl, Hawkman, and the villain Vandal Savage, and Rip Hunter was a great character, and overall very enjoyable first season, some great character development and chemistry between the actors slash characters as well. So that's Legends Season 1, and I enjoyed that show so much so I did grab Season 2. I'm only a third of the way through this so far, and I'm really enjoying it as well. I don't really know what is going to happen. Loads of random different directions. They've brought now Vixen in, which I watched the animated movie of Vixen not too long ago, and I really enjoyed that. And I'm enjoying the character on the show so far as well, and overall so far so good. I am really thoroughly enjoying this. So that is Legends of Tomorrow Season 2. Next up we have Season 4 of Arrow. Now I haven't watched Arrow in a very long time. I picked up this season around Christmas 2016, and I was very underwhelmed by the Season 3 finale where Oliver and Felicity just ride off into the sunset to start new lives. Not exactly the ending I was thinking Season 3 would have. But Season 4 does pick up the pieces in a competent way. It's very interesting to say the least, and the introduction of the Green Arrow this time rather than just the Arrow was quite good as well. However, the villain Damien Dark, he had a very good introduction. I really enjoyed the beginning stages of learning about basically his magical powers of being able to use the Force. It was pretty much using the Force, just like Force choking people and throwing people backward like Qui-Gon Jinn would do to battle droids. But honestly, that got very old very quickly, and this season was very frustrating. Nothing was really explored about the Ghosts, which was like an army of people terrorizing Star City, and so I was hoping for a lot more development on the villain side of things. But really, it was just sort of petty squabbling between all the heroes of this story, and how they were trying to fix things between one another, how they were very uncaring and then cared suddenly, and then things were just very different. And honestly, I was expecting a lot more from this season, but I really enjoyed seeing Ray Palmer after the Season 3 finale episode of what happened to him. That's resolved, and it's very good in my opinion. Quite liked Thea as Speedy, which is a very good story arc, and I really enjoyed in particular the random character of Curtis, who is now a series main if I'm not mistaken. He is very good in my opinion, so I cannot wait to see what will become of that character in Season 5. And I really enjoyed Season 4 so much so I did grab Season 5, so I can't wait to start this after I've finished working my way through Legends of Tomorrow. So that's Arrow Season 5. And last up for the Blu-rays, we have Supergirl Season 1, which I've never really been too interested in this show, but the way this is basically intertwined with the other 3 DC TV shows, I feel as though I'm missing out sometimes, because obviously this character comes up in the crossover episodes, and there was a very interesting episode in Flash Season 3, which was actually basically a musical spoof, where her character ended up in the episode randomly. and we got to see like Martian Manhunter, for example. So it's stuff like that I'm really intrigued to see more of. And I did watch the pilot episode on this little promotional DVD I showed in an update not too long ago, and the first episode of Supergirl wasn't too bad. So I actually ordered season 5 of Arrow from Amazon, and there was an offer where if you bought a full priced box set of one of the DC TV shows, you got another one half price. So I picked up Supergirl for half off, so I think this came to about $4.60 something, I can't quite remember. But for that, for a 3-disc set, I honestly don't mind paying that, and if it is crap, then I'll just sell it on. So that's Supergirl Season 1. I do have high hopes for this first season. So with the Blu-rays covered, let's move on to the DVDs. First up for the DVDs, we have Tom Hanks in The Green Mile. This movie I watched about 6 or 7 years ago in an RE class in high school, and I really thoroughly enjoyed it then, and I recently watched a couple of clips of the movie on YouTube, and it made me want to rewatch it, and I absolutely love this. I actually can't believe it's a 3-hour movie because everything feels so concise and really well told in terms of the story, and I love the concepts of the morality of death row and capital punishment with the electric chair in the 1930s. It's overall a phenomenal story, and the characters especially. I love Paul Edgecombe, portrayed by Tom Hanks, and of course the star character, in my opinion, John Coffey, is absolutely terrific. Of course, he's basically a miracle of God, and he's a healer, if that makes any sense. If you've seen the film, of course, you will understand. But I just love the concepts and the overall portrayal of the morality of the electric chair in this film. Very evocative story, and absolutely stunning, and I definitely recommend checking this movie out. So that's The Green Mile. Next up we have The Amazing Spider-Man 2, which truthfully I actually haven't watched yet, but I have seen this before. I just don't really remember too much about it, but I loved reading into the cancelled sequels. I vaguely remember Emma Stone's character dying at the end of the film, and there was some bizarre storyline how they wanted to resurrect her from the dead, and then she would have her own movie franchise or something bizarre, as Spider-Gwen, just loads of random, strange bullshit about this franchise. I'm so glad The Amazing Spider-Man is done for. I actually bought this film for a project I'm working on for the channel, which is a worst to first on all these Spider-Man movies. So once I've watched this, obviously I will be detailing my opinion in that video very soon. So that is The Amazing Spider-Man 2. Next up we have a Christmas horror movie. This is Krampus. I actually didn't really get around to watching it this Christmas, so I'll probably stick it in the pile and watch it next year, but I've heard very good things about it, and I love the concept of Krampus, and I definitely recommend reading up on that if you are not familiar with Krampus as a, I'm going to say horror character, so yeah, very interesting stuff. So that's Krampus. Next up we have the complete 5th season of Prison Break. This was, in my opinion, an absolutely phenomenal revival of the show, and I really thoroughly enjoyed every single episode, and I think the fact that it was so short, only 9 episodes, really did this justice, and thankfully deterred it away from becoming like Season 2 and Season 4, where the episodes are so elongated because they have to cover so much ground, and this just felt absolutely amazing to see these characters back in action, and was certainly satisfying towards the end, so I really thoroughly enjoyed this. So that is Prison Break Season 5. Next up we have Derek Season 2, the comedy show by Ricky Gervais. I remember only watching maybe half of this on Channel 4 when it first aired, and I lost interest, to be honest. I really thoroughly enjoyed Season 1, but Season 2, with the departure of Carl Pilkington, who portrayed Dougie, unfortunately this became more based around Kev as a character, and I'm not really a big fan of Kev as a character, so to be honest I really just lost interest in the show, but I'm glad I actually picked this up again because I loved the very bizarre character of Jeff, who is basically Dougie's replacement, and episode 6 in particular, because Jeff is such a bully basically to the elderly residents. I just love the sequence where Derek stands up to him. Just overall very good, very evocative show, and I definitely recommend checking this out. It's more of a light-hearted comedy, and certainly is not supposed to be compared to the likes of The Office and Extras, but very, very good. So I really enjoyed Series 2 of Derek, and I also picked up the special, which is actually an extended version, so I will assume they cut some stuff out for the Channel 4 airing. I didn't really watch the Channel 4 airing, so obviously I didn't really know what was cut out from this version. But this was okay, it was a decent finale to the series, but I think a Series 3 would have been much better in my personal opinion, but overall decent. So that is Derek the Special. Next up we have Children of Men, which I found to be an incredible film. Very unique in my opinion. It stars Clive Owen, Julianne Moore and Michael Caine, and focuses on the year 2027 where women are no longer able to bear children. The youngest person on Earth has died at age 18 and it looks like the extinction of humanity. And I love that. Absolutely tremendous stuff. And the way this film is portrayed with the war zone in Britain and the main storyline of the main character Theo, portrayed by Clive Owen, protecting the one pregnant woman on Earth, absolutely stunning stuff, and I really thoroughly enjoyed this, and I definitely recommend checking it out. So that's Children of Men. Next up we have two British gangster films by Guy Ritchie. We have Lock, Stock and Two Smoking Barrels, which is my preferred one of these two films, and we also have Snatch, which I quite liked. Lock, Stock I personally prefer for the converging storyline where all these miniature storylines converge into one major story arc, and that was absolutely terrific and I really thoroughly enjoyed it overall. Some very interesting stuff and great characters in my opinion, hilarious in fact, and was overall very enjoyable and launched the career of Jason Statham and Guy Ritchie. So definitely a film I'd recommend checking out. And next up we have Snatch, which came out 2 years after Lock, Stock, and overall was very good, very similar in terms of the storylines all converging at once. However, my personal favourite storyline was Jason Statham's as Turkish and his little empty-headed friend Tommy, and those two partaking in illegal boxing. That was definitely one of my favourite storylines from this film, and I really quite liked Benicio del Toro's character, who was basically thrown in there as like a diamond thief, and that was very good as well. So that is Snatch. And finally for this update video we have the Tommy Wiseau movie The Room. Now The Room I've heard of for many years and never really had the enthusiasm to sit down and watch it because it's regarded as one of the worst movies ever made, and yet it has this very bizarre cult following of people that really do quite like this film. And with the recent success and release of the film The Disaster Artist by James Franco, which is based on this book, which is based on the making of this movie, I really wanted to sit down and watch the original source material, and I'm very glad that I did. Some very interesting stuff to say the least. I love the plot. It's basically a love triangle with a revenge story as well, with loads of random other stories thrown in there for no reason that don't really get resolved. And I actually did a review of this movie that I will be releasing in the next few weeks, so overall very interesting, and Tommy Wiseau as a person is a very bizarre human being, but he's very humbling and very charismatic as well, despite his very estranged accent basically, and his very bizarre appearance as well. He's definitely what I would regard as a character, and overall I think he's fantastic. So yeah, overall very good stuff, and very surprising stuff as well. So that's The Room. And here is the book of The Disaster Artist, which obviously I haven't read yet, but I'm looking forward to doing so before I check out the film of The Disaster Artist. And this was written by Greg Sestero, who portrays Mark in the movie. You may recognise Mark from the Oh Hi Mark thing, which is a popular meme from the Room movie.
I did not hit her. It's not true. It's bullshit. I did not hit her. I did not. Oh, hi, Mark.
But yeah, overall, I'm looking forward to reading this book, and The Room wasn't as bad as I thought it would have been. Terribly made, of course, but still very interesting and very light-hearted humour as well. So that is The Room and the Disaster Artist book. So thanks for watching my Blu-ray and DVD update for January 2018. I hope you enjoyed. Be sure to leave a like down below. Let me know in the comments if you've seen anything I featured in this update video, and please subscribe down below for more.